Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I got Logan with me. Logan, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty good. Everything's going great in the sports world in regards to my teams. Can't complain there. Wish I could get on my Xbox right now, but other than that, life's pretty great. How about you, man?
Yeah,
Mm.
we're obviously going to be talking about the Xbox Live stuff in a bit, but it's been good here. You know, the weather, it's like 2 degrees lower than usual, so I'm not going to complain as much. England have made it to the quarterfinals this week. It's going to be a good time, but this isn't a sports podcast, and I don't want to bore people with my football stuff. Let's get into what we've been playing because we have. I'm not even kidding. We have 20 topics this week, so it's going to be fun to go through all of them, and pretty much all of them are good. So no negative stuff this week outside of the Xbox Live thing. But to be honest, there's been a bunch of UK stuff going down. National Wide Bank in the UK, they down. So if you want to withdraw your money or do anything, you're kind of screwed. I don't know what's going on with the internet at the minute. A lot of different web services are down. Facebook's having issues. Call of Duty's having issues. But again, alas, we'll get into other stuff. Logan, what have you been playing this week? It's been a long week.
Yeah, I've been playing a whole bunch of just different stuff. Like I've been really engrossed in Octopath Traveler and just the first one and second one are both in Game Pass. I liked it so much I bought the bundle when it was on sale. And yeah, it's like Super Nintendo era JRPG greatness but modernized, and the soundtrack is great. The combat is really fun and intuitive and new. You remember how in Lost Odyssey, like they had like some combos and like certain abilities and things that were kind of a new twist to the JRPG combat
Oh yeah,
mechanics and stuff. I love how Octopath has something kind of like that with the breaks, and like you break their shield down and then you gain points and then you can stack them or use them just as soon as you get them to do more powerful versions of your abilities. And then like going around in towns, and like I can either, as this barbarian girl, I can summon a giant lynx to intimidate somebody, or a knight, I can challenge somebody to a duel. A rogue, I can pick their pocket. um this kid who's an alchemist, I can just use his perception to find clues and stuff. Like, so much just fun, little twist to the JRPG mechanics, and really been enjoying that. And the new Power Wash expansion just dropped today, which, as soon as I can buy something on there, I'll be picking that up. The Alice in Wonderland expansion. I beat the original Perfect Dark, and man, I have to say, like, Rare was absolutely peak cooking with that. Like, it completely holds up still today, and I understand why it's one of the highest rated games ever. It it's incredible, and my hype for the new Perfect Dark is even higher now. Gonna jump into Perfect Dark Zero soon, and yeah, just I picked up a whole bunch of horror games on sale, like some ranging from like I think it's Puppet Combo is like the studio or something, like these PS1 era looking like goofy horror games that are like $10, $20, whatever. And then, some more complicated, more modern stuff. But overall, it's been good. How about you, man? You still doing Avatar and Lost Judgment?
a bunch of stuff. Before I get into all that stuff, would you say Octopath Traveler 2 is something you can just jump into without playing the first game, or would you say it's even easier? Because I played two, and I sorry the first one, and I thought the first one was excruciatingly hard.
I have not jumped into two yet. I figured I was going to like two as much as I was liking the first one.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and bought. They had it on sale to where you could get them both for the price of one, basically. So I was like, that's a really good deal. I'll just go ahead and get it. I haven't jumped into the second one, but I will admit the combat, it does have a bit of a curve, but once you really start utilizing the breaks, like, okay, this guy is weak to arrows, so I'm gonna spam this guy with arrows until his guard goes down, and then I could stack and do stuff. It makes it a lot easier, but some of the bosses are tough.
Mm. Yeah, I'll get to that at some point. But when it comes to the stuff I've been playing, and this has something to do with the first super chat of the day by Brandon Martin. Thank you very much for the $2. He says, had to turn on the PlayStation 5 because Xbox is down. uh,
You're not the only one, Brandon.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he's like, I've been signed into my Xbox all day, so like I wasn't aware of any of the live outages up until like 2 or 3 hours ago. So like I was playing the expansion to Lost Judgment, the Kaito files. Uh, that's my favorite character in the game, so I love the fact he has his own expansion. I played the beginning of that, but like when I eventually went off my Xbox and I tried to sign back in, no look, so I had to play something on my PC. So I've actually been playing a PC game. I've been playing Homeworld 2. I love Homeworld 2. I don't have a PlayStation 5 at the minute, so that's not my secondary device, but like on PC I have a few games. And like Homeworld, by the way, if anyone has a PC that's slightly capable, it doesn't even have to be that powerful, and you like RTS games, for the love of everything, play Homeworld Remastered. It is incredible. It's one of the best RTS games I've ever played. I used to play it back in the day, in the early 2000s, and I must have put maybe 1,000 hours into that RTS back in the day. And this is like a really good remaster. All the visuals have been remade. The sound's better. The performance is better. It's a damn good game. But anyway, thank you for the $2, Brandon Martin. It's my secondary gaming device is essentially my PC at this point. Uh, although no matter how much I do play, I still don't find the keyboard and mouse input that really comfortable. The whole WASD thing really hurts my hand for some reason. Feels like I'm getting carpal tunnel. But outside of that, I actually finished Lost Judgment. I will say this. I think Judgment, which came out in, 2015 on PlayStation, it came to Xbox in 2020, I think, 2021. Judgment, in my opinion, is a 9.5 out of 10. I'm not even kidding. It's one of the best games I've ever played. Lost Judgment, I have to say it's an 8.5. I didn't find the side activities that good. However, I did love the main story. I do feel like it had two cities just for the hell of it. Like, if you hear a game, a follow-up to one of your favorite games has two cities in it, and it's an open world game, you get excited because that's more stuff to like do. Well, in Lost Judgment, you have two cities, but there's less stuff to do in each one. But all in all, I'm really glad I played it. What a good game, and I'll play it again in the future. But Lost Judgment, I highly recommend people play them. They are the games set in the Yakuza universe. You play as a detective. Incredible storytelling. Like, I know there's all this weird stuff going behind the scenes with the actors in Japan, but I hope we get a third Judgment game, because I've basically been playing Judgment games since January. So like, even though you think I would be sick of it by now, I want more. I want another Judgment game. I just installed Like a Dragon, the man who erased his name. That's what I'm going to be playing next after the expansion. I've been playing a bunch of that. Avatar, like I said, it like Logan jokes about, it's an endless game, but I kind of like it for that reason. It's a very good game. You can basically get lost in that world for hours. People talk about these games that you get lost in and say that like these big wow moments every generation. Gears of War was that back in the day. That Avatar game, that is one of those wow next gen moments. There's no forest in any game like that. It's incredible. The verticality is insane. You have these floating mountains which you can actually explore, like the ones from the movies. It's amazing. It really is. I've also been playing a little bit more of Dragon's Dogma. I've kind of had like a 2 month break from that, but I will say this: Capcom have been updating that game a lot. They've put out a new graphics mode so you can turn it from like high, medium, or low. Haven't tried it yet, but the really cool thing about Capcom is if they put out a game, they support it big time. There's even like 120 frames per second mode now on Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, so I highly recommend people that game. Logan, do you think you'll pick up Dragon's Dogma 2 at some point?
Yeah, I will down the line. I'm just kind of not in the RPG frame of mind right now. I'm kind of into a little more shorter, streamlined experiences, but it is one I want to pick up.
Yeah, it's a good game. It's a really good game. And I finally finished Still Wakes the Deep. Uh, What a
Oh,
good
good
game.
game.
Yeah, great game. It does have. It's kind of like this weird game where it's kind of like Alien Isolation, but it's not at the same time. So if you're a scaredy cat like me, and believe me, I'm a scaredy cat when it comes to horror games. Absolutely terrified. Turn the gamma and brightness all up, lights on. But it was a great game. Great storytelling, great characters. It's not often you hear Scottish, like actual Scottish people in a video game, which was really nice. But great game. It's also on Game Pass for people who want to try it. You can actually get all the achievements in one go if you want. So as long as you follow a guide, there's plenty out there. You can get all of them. And what else have I been playing? I think that might be it. Oh, Elden Ring, which is actually going to be our first topic quickly. So Elden Ring, Shadow of the Earth Tree. I've got gameplay going on right now on screen. That game has absolutely beat the living hell out of me. I hate myself and I love it at the same time. I took a 2 year break from this game, so you'd think, maybe I'd do the smart thing and learn the game again, go around the starting area, just learn the controls, because it's been 2 years. No, what did I do? I bought the expansion and just start playing, going up against bosses. I think I'm now 8 or 9 bosses into the game. There's 78, I think, or 77. That game is beautiful and it's amazing. The main game, I say it's a 10 out of 10. Absolute 10 out of 10 game, but the expansion is kicking me in. But again, I am rusty. Well, it's funny because before we actually went live in last week's show, I was telling Logan how difficult it is and how much I actually think that they're going to patch the game. And it turns out, like 2 days later, they patched the game, server side. So there's these like tree fragments you can get throughout the game which negate damage. If you find these, they help you basically suffer through battles. You'll be easier off. Like I will say this though, like Logan, can you remember in the main game for Elden Ring, those dungeons, like the stone dungeons?
Yes, I remember those greatly.
Yeah, so they weren't really that long. They were pretty like, decent sized. They maybe take about 10 minutes to go through, and then you get to the boss. Well, in this game, the dungeons are arguably harder than the bosses. Like excruciating. There's traps that you've never seen in the main game, but what a game! Like I don't know when I'll finish Elden Ring: Shadow of the Earth Tree, but hey, it's amazing. I highly recommend people play it. But I will say this though, taking 2 years from a game, and not even like going back to it at all, and then jumping into an expansion is something people should not do. I've had a rough time. Some of the bosses have been terrible for me. Like it doesn't help that I'm a bit stubborn. I keep my playstyle very specific. I use a short sword and a shield. I don't use much magic, so I basically make the game harder for myself because I'm an idiot. It is what it is. Anyway, we'll move on. We've got like 20 topics. Let's get into all of it. You know what? Let's get into the whole Xbox Live thing being down quickly because there's a bunch of web services down in the UK. I know it's happening in the US, but Call of Duty's down, PlayStation's having issues, National Wide Bank, Minecraft, that's having issues, Roblox is down. There's a bunch of these outlets having problems. Xbox Live is down, PlayStation Network was down the other day, but it's a thing that happens and it's really annoying because in this weird connected age where we're literally connected to the internet 24/7, these devices we use essentially become useless when you're not connected to the internet. That's the big problem. Like, Logan, can you remember back in the day, back on 360, your internet went down and you still earned achievements on an Xbox offline?
Yeah, and you could just put your game in and play it, or if you had it downloaded and installed to the console, it's like, oh, you own this game. All right, let's go. And you could play it. Now I can't even log into my own console. And like I've seen reports of people who even own some physical games that have been having some problems. And it's just I don't know. You would think that a $2-3 trillion company could have better than hamster wheel service and internet coverage, and this raises the whole specter of the whole DRM thing. That the boogeyman that everybody always brings up about physical media, digital media, what does it mean to own and stuff like most of the time I go, yeah, all right, whatever, and then we kind of move on. But it's like times like this that really highlight it, and it makes you at least tentative about the aspect of a purely digital future.
Yeah, I know we talk about the seventh generation a lot because, oh my god, let's be honest, it was a better time, right? We were
Yes, it was.
it was a better time. Like we like if a game came out, let's just go back in time to 2007, and of course I have to bring up Mass Effect. I played Mass Effect as did millions of other people, and you know what happened? It did so well. We got a sequel 3 years later, and then that did so well. We got a follow up to that game called Mass Effect 3 2 years later. And we had these things called sequels in generations. And now I feel terrible. I feel dead inside because I'm going to have to wait decades in between sequels. We have to be connected to the internet 24/7. You can't earn achievements offline. Apps need to update every 5 seconds. Video games get updates the size of video games. Like, do you know how many times I go to play Call of Duty with one of my friends and it's like, okay, because we have to arrange in advance, And that's the thing about adults, unfortunately. You have to arrange in advance when you can play a COD. So we arrange when we play. He turns on his Xbox or PlayStation because we do the whole cross-play thing. And I turn on my Xbox and Call of Duty 40 GB update. I want to jump out of the window. I want to end it all because it's so annoying because we had it so easy. Like, you turn on your Xbox 360 back in the day, and what's this? There's a brand new indie game on Xbox Live called Super Meat Boy or Trials Fusion or something. I don't care. It was an easier time, and now I feel like gaming. I'm constantly headbutting a wall made of nails. Is something every single day. Or does this new game have expansions? No, it has a battle pass where you earn cosmetics. Okay, there's like microtransactions in this single player game, or there's a single player game that has a season pass and a battle pass. Why am I doing this to myself? Like, yes, this may be a nostalgia trip episode, but like, just Xbox Live going down isn't the worst thing in the world. It isn't. There's much worse things going on, but like, when you have free time and you want to play some video games, it's slightly annoying. Because there's a game I've been looking forward to for like over a year now called The First Descendant, which was actually going to be a topic today. And it went live this morning at 8 a.m. Well, I only tried to get on at about 6 p.m. and it kept saying, you can't sign in. There's a problem with your account. So I went on Twitter and did what everyone else does. You do a little search. And it turns out people were having issues getting into The First Descendant. I thought, well, this is one of the highest viewed things on Twitch at the minute. Maybe it's just The First Descendant having launch issues, because that's what happens with video games now. You get launch issues, and I'm perfectly fine with that. It's a teething issue. It's okay. We move on. It's not it's not a big deal. And then I turn off my Xbox to get stuff done, and I go back on, and I can't sign in, and I go online, and Xbox Live down is trending. End it all, please. I want to jump off a bridge. Like, it's so annoying. like it's scorching hot. My alcohol isn't cold yet. Like, I'm insufferably annoying today because it's so annoying. The 21st century Like, we're meant to have hover cars by now, but no, my little console can't work because of the bloody internet. What world are we living in? Logan, I've been rambling. I know you want to talk about Xbox Live being down.
Yeah, like I feel the same way. It is driving me crazy. It's like, you have people who have time off, or they get a break during some stuff and they want to just sit down and play their game or do something like that, or even access their apps. Like, if everything's connected to your Xbox Live account, that makes it a problem. So, like, movies anywhere, Netflix, like whatever you have associated with your stuff, like your account, is just, it's in flux. And then the fact that you can't just play your stuff even when you already own it is just nuts to me. And like, we're positive guys. You and me usually see a lot more sunshine than some other shows out there, but there there's things you can't gloss over, and this is a problem. And this has not been the first time this has been an issue. I remember, like, a year or two ago, this lasted a couple days where people couldn't get their stuff. And then there was a whole flux of articles that came out about, oh no, you don't actually own your games, or, oh, having to constantly be online and stuff. And then you get some people go, well, this is the year 20, whatever, and everybody has internet. What's the problem? It's like, well, buddy, it doesn't mean jack if you have internet, but you can't actually use the thing because it won't connect to the internet that you have. And I don't know. It's just infuriating, and it's a bad look. And either make it to where you can play all your games offline that aren't obviously online multiplayer games, or make it to where the ownership of things is more transparent, or something, because we cannot keep having this problem. You already got people up in arms about multi-platform tomfoolery. Like, where on earth is the ABK games and Game Pass, other stuff, and then you add this on top of it. It's just, you're you're really starting to kick the fan base right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just an Xbox specific thing. Like, PSN was down the other day, but that's annoying as well. Like, millions of people don't have access to the games and services, and it's annoying. You know, adults, we sometimes have to plan things in advance. Do you know how annoying it is when I have plans and I can't do them? It really annoys me. So, like, the fact I couldn't play games I wanted, like, I had some little free time and I thought I'd play the first Descendant, but no. Alas, my life is crap. Anyway, even like Sky, Sky was down last night and I wanted to watch Game of Thrones. I had to sign in and out of this service. Sky is our satellite TV service. I had to sign in and out of Sky 12 times to get Game of Thrones to play. Do you know how annoying that is? like, I'm not missing my Game of
It's
Thrones.
awful.
Yeah, it's annoying, and like, man, it's so annoying. But anyway, Xbox Live being down. Hopefully they fix it soon. Because people want to play some stuff, and I think it's really annoying because, like, on apps on consoles, your login information is signed into those apps on your profile. So if you can't sign into your profile, you can still use the apps, but you have to sign in again. Now, that doesn't make it impossible. It just makes it annoying. And a small annoyance to me, it's infuriating. Like, I don't want that in my life. It's a small annoyance makes me want to jump out the window. But that's Xbox Live. It's been down. It'll get better. You know what? Let's get into all the good news, because we have some good news. Really good news. So there's a game coming to Xbox this month that people were panicking about because it wasn't announced for Xbox. And this is a trend I've noticed. A game doesn't get announced for Xbox. People lose their mind, start saying multi-plats are skipping Xbox, and then it gets announced for Xbox. And all those people that freaked out online say nothing. They go quiet. Anyway, Darkest Dungeon 2 got announced for Xbox like 5 hours ago. So that's actually coming to Xbox. I think it's coming to Xbox on the 16th of this month. So if you've been looking for a new RPG, that's coming. But I think this is a message to people that freak out every single time a game skips Xbox. Like when those like JRPGs skip Xbox, you kind of know why, and that's always going to be an issue, or at least has been for a while. Unfortunately, that's just the state it is. But when a Western game or something skips Xbox, people freak out, and then it gets announced for the platform a week later. This has happened like 3 times in the past few months. It happened last year with Baldur's Gate. Like Logan, can you remember the reaction online when Baldur's Gate was announced for PlayStation and not Xbox? And then everyone online was saying it's the death of Xbox, it's the end of the platform. And then literally the developer tweeted out saying, "No, it's coming to Xbox, just not yet."
Yeah, that was an absolute bleep show. I remember that.
Yeah, and it's like it was all over nothing, you know. My way of thinking is like as long as the game comes to the console, let them sort out the technical issues out on the sidelines, all that stuff. Like let them sort that out. But anyway, that game's been announced for Xbox. I'm sure people will be happy. Next up, we have Logan. You want to talk about this? And by the way, uh, every month I put out a video of the 10 biggest new games coming to Xbox this month. Just put one out for July. July is probably the best month of gaming so far. There's some incredible releases. Highly recommend people watch that. It's in the description down below. But one of those games is college football. Now, I don't typically cover sports games. Because people don't really seem that interested. It's usually the same thing every year: FIFA, Madden, NFL, all those sports games. It's the same. You're paying for the same thing every year. But this year's different because people have been wanting college football in the US to come back for years. In fact, one of the most requested games I get asked about when it comes to backwards compatibility is NCAA football something. And I have to tell them, like, that's a licensed football game. It's not going to happen. But Logan, I know you want to talk about this because college football in the US is pretty big.
Yeah, like straight up, this game will put up GTA numbers. It is going to be just absolutely like printed gold for EA. People have been waiting for this game for literally a decade because of lawsuits, licensing, name, image, likeness, like a whole bunch of stuff, behind the scenes and outside of the game studios and off the field. Like, stuff that is annoying, but, is exist and have problems that they had to address. And now that those have been addressed, they were able to get on it and bring it back. And it is launching this month, and everybody is just over here is to the moon about it. I am super excited. Like, I don't even enjoy sports games that much. I enjoy playing sports, I enjoy watching sports, but playing sports games has generally not been my favorite gaming experience, except for the college football games. There was something about them that was just a lot more fun and fresh and like I know how over like to explain to the people who don't follow American sports that well, like college athletics here is like a religion. Is like downright devoted, like people like just hardcore fandom experiences, tailgating, traveling across the country, like just huge donors and boosters. The fandom goes wild for these schools and universities and colleges and stuff. And so imagine like y'all were deprived of FIFA for a decade, or like all the NBA games were gone, or all the NFL games were gone for a decade, and then they finally came back. It's like this is like a perfect fever pitch storm for a game to come back, and I am honestly predicting this to set records and just be just a sight to truly see. It is going to be spectacular.
Yeah, so like for me as a British person, it's just people throwing a rugby shaped ball. Like I don't. By the way, I've watched almost every Super Bowl my entire life, just because it's on. I do not understand that sport. I don't get it. I might as well be watching aliens play laser tennis. It doesn't make sense. But a lot of people are hyped for this. I'm sure there'll be I'm sure there might be like a demo or something. EA tends to do sports like demos, but that's had a lot of hype for that game. I'm sure people love it. Let's get the Game Pass stuff out of the way. So there's been a bunch of new Game Pass games announced. There's Cricket 24. I'm sure all the Americans listening are thrilled about this news.
Oh
Yeah.
yes.
By the way, I don't think I've ever spoke to anyone that plays a cricket video game. Like even friends in real life that like love watching cricket. Nobody plays those video games. But anyway, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's like a huge like gaming centric cricket people. I don't know. There's a game called Flock.
The JRPG Fire Tablet community.
Yeah. Oh, might be even bigger. But we also have a Flock coming to Game Pass. It's kind of like this weird like isometric flying game. It looks pretty cool actually. A game that's coming to Game Pass called Journey to the Savage Planet. I've played this. It actually launched on Game Pass a few years ago, and now it's back. If you're up for like a quirky first-person shooter sci-fi adventure where you fight these like weird-looking aliens in these like floating mountains and stuff, it's a really cool game. Really cool game. Another game coming called Magical Delicacy. That sounds like something that's got to do with cooking. Chia, which is this third-person kind of like adventure game. The Case of the Golden Idol. I'm not gonna lie, I have no clue. Next up, we have Nickelodeon All Star Brawl. Now they fixed a lot with the sequel, which people wanted, like voice actors and like I think it has crossplay and all that stuff. I'm sure people love it. It's got SpongeBob SquarePants and a bunch of Nickelodeon characters, and also a game called Neon White. This game was like loved when it launched on the Switch a few years ago. It's kind of like a first-person adventure game, a first-person platform adventure. It looks weird, but it looks super cool at the same time. I'm sure people will love it. That got like a 90 rated or 89 on Metacritic. People have been wanting this to come to Xbox for a very long time, but it looks super cool. It's a decent Game Pass drop, but we're meant to be getting more soon. We tend to get 2 drops each month, and with the Game Pass and Activision stuff, which we'll be talking about in a bit, it wouldn't surprise me if we see something in the next week. I'll just put it that way. Next up, okay, right, let's talk about this quickly. Crazy Taxi. A lot of people, I'm sure, that are listen later, that have played Crazy Taxi at some point. If you see a single frame of Crazy Taxi, you tend to think The Offspring. Like, yeah. That pops in my head every single time. And you can buy it on Xbox Live at the minute. I think it's currently £6 something. Unfortunately, I think they actually removed the Offspring music, which is unfortunate because the music's half the experience of that game. But anyway, when Sega announced a bunch of games last year, it turns out one of them was Crazy Taxi. And there was not many details about it, other than the fact that it's going to feature a 100-player mode. Now, for some reason, I've been the only person talking about this for like months now. And, Dextro, or whatever you call it, the Twitter account, posted on about how the new update for that information is that it's an MMO. So Crazy Taxi is basically going to be a 100-player server MMO where there's taxis versus cops and all this stuff. And basically, my gist of the information is that the new Crazy Taxi is essentially going to be GTA Online, but it's just going to be cars, which I think could work really well. The cities are going to be fully open and basically work like theme parks, so you can have different themed areas of the city, which will play and handle differently, which I think is a really cool idea. But the fact that it's 100% confirmed, 100 players in a Crazy Taxi multiplayer game. Like, that sounds crazy. It sounds kind of ambitious because Crazy Taxi hasn't been around for, 20 years since it came to GameCube and PlayStation 2. So, it's been a long time. Like, I'm personally looking forward to it. Like, Logan, what do you think? Because Crazy Taxi, it's a very Sega thing, and Sega's getting back into the whole, having 90s and 80s and 2000s like style games back.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how it goes. Like, I'll admit, like, I've never played GTA Online, so I have not played that, so I'm not familiar with those experiences. But GTA, main experiences I have the original Crazy Taxis. I enjoy the classic Crazy Taxi experience, so hopefully there's a way to kind of do that as well. But if not, I'll at least give it a shot. But it's definitely an interesting modernized twist for the franchise.
Yeah, I think that Crazy Taxi coming back is like the most like late '90s, like early 2000s thing Sega can do because Sega, like, they should be one of the biggest publishers in the world, like top two in my opinion. They're just the intellectual properties they have. They sometimes miss with Sonic games. It's a very hit and miss franchise that, but they absolutely nail Persona. They absolutely nail Yakuza. So like they've got the JRPG like system on lock. But if they can bring back arcade style games, which it looks like they're trying to do, it's going to be an exciting time because I love like early 2000s, like late 90s games. Like that's my childhood there. Like I love those games. Um, but a new Crazy Taxi and it's confirmed to be a AAA game, and I love the fact that people are excited about this because it's not a graphically intensive game. It's not. You're not playing this for the Unreal Engine 5, super realistic game. It's just not like that. But it's just all about fun, and I think that's something we've lost with video games. Uh, you'd be shocked how often I'll post like a clip from a trailer or a trailer itself or screenshots, and people will ask me like, "Is this Unreal Engine 5? Is it 60 FPS? Does it have ray tracing?" And it's like all that stuff's cool and all, but if the game's not fun, what's the point? You know. I think that's something that gaming's lost a bit. Again, this is me going back to the seventh gen. Back in the seventh gen, people weren't asking for realistic graphics at all. No one was ever asking for that stuff. We just got good games, and some of them had really cool art styles. Batman Arkham Asylum still looks good, but guess what? It didn't have it didn't have realistic graphics at the time. It wasn't trying to do that. I just think that Crazy Taxi coming back is just a sign to me from developers. At least they're trying to go back to the fun part of gaming. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Anyway, we'll move on. Let's get into the whole Capcom stuff. So we've had all the summer showcases, basically most of them so far, except THQ Nordic, but who knows what's going to happen there. And Capcom, they've like low-key been hyping this thing for about a week now. All good. Capcom Next. And by the way, Logan, did you actually watch the Capcom thing?
No, I didn't. To be honest, I kind of don't trust how they do those.
Yeah, so you saved yourself some time. It was awful. So myself, of course, I hyped myself up, and other people were telling me, Jamie, we might see Dino Crisis 2, or Dino Crisis 1, or Dino Crisis in general, remake, remaster, don't care. And I actually gaslit myself into thinking we were going to see Dino Crisis, like, just with all the memes that day, and it was my own fault, I admit that, but I gaslit myself into thinking it's happening. It's finally happening. And they opened up and start talking about the Kanitsugami Path of the Goddess, which looks really cool, by the way. I've been covering it on the channel for a while. There's actually a demo out now for people to download. I think it's only 7 gigabytes, so a very small demo. That looks very cool. And then they start talking about the Dead Rising remaster. It's actually a remake, but it's labeled a remaster. I don't know why developers keep doing this. And the remake, I'm just going to call it remake. The remake looks great. It's got created visuals from the ground up using the RE engine. All the zombies have like more detail than basically the first game combined, which is crazy. It has modern game controls. Like, Logan, did you ever play Dead Rising back in the day?
Oh yeah, and I played it on an old CRTV, and I couldn't even read the captions. I just, the it was a lot of fun, but it definitely did not age well. And I'm glad they're going back and modernizing some stuff. And visually, my goodness, it
Yeah.
looks so much better.
Yeah, visually it's outstanding. Like, it looks damn good. But the main takeaway for me was the controls. That game had the weirdest controls at the time. Like it didn't feel natural to play. It was so weird, but the fact that they made that a big like point of like contention, like the controls are fixed. It has a bunch of quality of life, improvements such as where is it here? Auto saves, which that's going to be a lifesaver for a lot of people. It's got 4K 60 FPS support on Series X, which is really good. Like it looks like what you'd want from a full-on Dead Rising remake. It's fun, absolutely crazy. It doesn't make sense in that world, and for people that haven't played it, it's basically Dawn of the Dead, the early 2000s film, but crazy, over the top action. It doesn't make sense in that world. Yeah, I think they changed voice actor, but all the characters are voiced, which is good because some characters just had text near the head. But all in all, it looks like it's going to be a great package. I love the fact that they at least trying to bring back this franchise because it didn't have the best look, that franchise. Dead Rising 2 came out. A lot of people didn't resonate with the setting or the main character. Like, it was weird. It was just a very weird sequel. It was in Vegas, I believe. And then you had the third one, which was the launch game for the Xbox One, which was actually really impressive at the time, but that was more serious. But the fourth one, tone-wise, was weird. It was set during Christmas, but no one wanted to play a Christmas game after Christmas. So it's like they kind of locked themselves into just playing that game in December. But it's good that the franchise is coming back. And weirdly enough, they actually had the weirdest pacing for their showcase. So that they were talking about Dead Rising, and then they start talking about the mobile version of Resident Evil 7 for iOS, iPhone 15 Pro, whatever it's called, and Mac. And then they start talking about Dead Rising again, and then they went back to Resident Evil, and they start talking about Resident Evil some more. And the creative director of Resident Evil 7 is confirmed to come back for the new Resident Evil game. We don't know if that's RE9 or any of the remakes, but it's a new game, confirmed, all that stuff. But there was no Dino Crisis there. There was no Dino Crisis. There was no Pragmata. So, I don't even know why they had that showcase. They should have just had a Dead Rising Direct and showed people, hey, this is what you can do in the game, this is when it's out. The Dead Rising stuff was great, don't get me wrong. The Kanitsu Path of the Goddess stuff, great. But I don't know why that happened. And I have a theory. I have a wild theory. I'm going to put on my little tinfoil hat. I have a theory that Capcom puts on these little showcases that people complain about, like I've been doing for the past 10 minutes. I have a theory that Capcom does these showcases to advertise their sales, because immediately after the showcase ended, there's a huge Capcom sale. I believe there's one on PlayStation as well, and there'll probably be one on Nintendo. But there's a huge Capcom sale where everything's massively discounted. And my theory,
I think you're on.
Yeah, I honestly think I'm right. They've done this a few times now, where they have this pointless showcase, and they just announce the sales afterwards. It's like, okay, cool, you can buy Resident Evil 0 and the Resident Evil remake for £6 or something. That's cool, but it happens every time. And it's always, they never improve on these showcases. It's never like, okay, people gave us this feedback. It was a terrible showcase. We'll do this and do that. No. Terrible showcase, weird pacing, didn't really need to exist. But by the way, here's our flashy sale afterwards. I don't know. I just don't know why they did that showcase. It was a bit weird. And it's getting to a point now where I think Dino Crisis is never going to happen.
Don't say that.
Yeah,
no.
Let's look at the rumors before the Xbox E3 thing happened, right? So before the Xbox E3 and the Jeff Keighley show, there was a rumor that Resident Evil 9 was going to be announced, and then Resident Evil 0 and RE remake. That's going to be confusion. That those games were going to be announced at some point over the weekend. And then it never happened. But when they kind of low-key announced Resident Evil 9 yesterday without anything else, I'm led to believe that they're basically just going to do Resident Evil every single time, and I'm perfectly fine with them doing Resident Evil. But I just get this weird vibe from Capcom that they are never going to do Dino Crisis. Like, it would essentially be a brand new IP for millions of people, like, because it's been so long. And I don't know, like, Logan, what's your thought on the whole Capcom Dino Crisis thing?
I don't know. It's such a hard thing to get a read on. I mean, there's obviously like people who are like fully engrossed in that community and lore, like Jaw Muncher and stuff, who have a better read of how Capcom operates and their views about that franchise and stuff. But from afar, it seems like the most you get is like a troll job with Exoprimal, where everybody and their dog thinks that's Regina, and then all of a sudden, guess what? No, we're trolling you. It's a mech dino shooter, crazy extravaganza, and we happen to have a redhead girl as a main protagonist who just so happens to clearly resemble Regina, but it's not Dino Crisis, so you know. But hey, we heard you like dinosaurs, and then they finally, on the 25th anniversary, acknowledge that the franchise exists. They put out that little static image of the bloody raptor claw curled up, and so everybody's like, "OMG, it's happening!" And then, yeah, Jack happened. It just you have another shoddy Capcom showcase with that could have been an email and no Dino Crisis. Like at this point, like sell the franchise to somebody that would do something with it or do something with it because like I don't know how in the year 2024 it is so hard for these companies to realize people like dinosaurs. Like something about dinosaurs, rocket ships, big guns, explosions, fast cars. It makes you feel like a kid again. Like there's something universal about those things. And the fact that they either are just creatively bankrupt with it and don't know how to do something with it, which seems hilarious to me. But I mean, it's dinosaurs and Resident Evil skin. I mean, it's a Resident Evil game with a dinosaur skin, is what it is. So surely somebody can do that. If they can't do it, then I hope somebody else just steps up to the mantle and makes a just absolutely awesome killer dino survival horror game AAA because there is a strong desire for it, and the more they troll the community, the more resentful the community gets about it.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Exoprimal thing because last year, uh, when the first trailer came out for Exoprimal, you're right. The camera did pan to this woman with short red hair, wearing like the leather vest like she did in the games, and like that was blatantly Regina. It was blatantly Regina. It's just it's not. It's just this other woman fixing a mech suit. Um, it just seems like easy money. Why wouldn't you want to be Capcom and have, hey, we'll have two horror franchises running along at the same time. One year you'll get Dino Crisis, the next year you get Resident Evil. To me, that just seems like a better business model. Um, but yeah, Capcom, don't know why they had that show. And like I said, I think it was just to promote sales. That's all it's for. But yeah, we'll move on. But we're about an hour into the show. If you're enjoying it, please like and share and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. And I hate doing these ads because I'm British and self-promoting is just not good on my part. But if you want to support the channel with super chats, if you want anything read out, it's greatly appreciated. Anyway, let's see. Okay, speaking of horror games, a Quiet Place video game was announced. I think it was announced literally just after we finished last week's show. I'll be honest, I'm terrible with horror. Like I'm scared. I'm a scaredy cat. I've mentioned this before. Like I'm awful. However, I love A Quiet Place. I love A Quiet Place Part 2. I'm looking forward to seeing the new film, which I think came out today in the UK. there's a video game coming out later this year on Xbox, and it looks like Alien Isolation, but a quiet place. And I could not be happier because, again, I love those films, and even when I was watching them for the first time at the cinema, all I could think was like, this would be such a cool concept for a video game where you can't make noise. So like, I'm hyped for this. Logan, what's your thoughts? Because it was a low key announcement, but it looks like it's going to be a bit like Alien Isolation.
Oh, that's music to my ears. I loved Alien Isolation. To this day, one of the single best horror games I have ever played. I've played quite a few of them, and it's incredible. Like the smartest enemy AI I've ever experienced in a game, bar none. That xenomorph was terrifyingly brilliant and learned and adapted and just made it its absolute mission in life to scare the bejeez out of you and to tear you apart. And the idea of a quiet place version of that that sounds awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, we only got a small tease, and I think we'll probably see something more over the summer. Um, by the way, a lot of people have been asking me like, what's happening with Avowed and Indiana Jones release dates. I've noticed a few of the game developers are doing this as well. This year is packed for video games, like absolutely packed. So I think a bunch of developers are waiting for more final announcements for games because let me tell you, as someone that covers games coming to the platform every month, you'd be shocked at how many great looking games are coming from like now till December. It's absolutely packed. I don't know how some games are going to release, so I assume A Quiet Place, the game's going to launch near Halloween, but it looks really cool. Again, if even if it's half as good as Alien Isolation, it's going to be a great game. And again, I love that universe. I hope we get more, but there is going to be A Quiet Place 3 at some point. But yeah, it looks really cool. So, Age of Mythology Retold. Now, a lot of people do find RTS games very niche, and they are kind of niche. And you know they're going to be covering it at Gamescom because it's a very European style game. Well, Logan, you said there's some news on this game.
Yeah, they've just been recently really active on social media and have been like people have been like, "Hey, how does this character look compared to the original?" Or, asking about long lost features or, like are these things that were in the original going to be restored for this one as well? And yeah, it's like the character models have just been improved so much. Like they showed one of the main Greek heroes, like what he looked like before and now, Isis, some of the abilities. They confirmed that this is a real throwback for the old fans, but they've confirmed that the Love Woo and O Canada cheats are in the game. And so if you don't know what on earth that means, there were some fun cheat codes you could use playing Age of Mythology. Like you type Wovlu and you end up with this giant flying hippo that shoots that has a rainbow as it flies around and it launches giant kisses at things. Or you could type O Canada and you would end up with a grizzly bear that shoots laser eyes and has a Canadian flag cape. Like, just for example, and they were super powerful allies to have. So, the fact that they're even bringing back obscure, fun little cheats like that is just great. They are revamping one of the civilizations that they had added to the original game for mythology stuff, and they're going to add some more civilizations to this game as expansions. It's just shaping up really, really nicely, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I think it's a good sign for like these games to stay true to how they were back in the day because even like weird cheat codes you don't really see in games anymore. You know, that used to be a big staple for video games where you'd buy, let's say, Grand Theft Auto 3 and turn on big head mode. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and in some remasters in the past, you just don't have access to those cheat codes anymore. And if they do, they actually lock off achievements, which means people don't actually turn them on. It's a bit of a shame. But it's good to know that they actually sticking to that, and that launches this what, September? Yeah, September. And like September's a packed month. And by the way, like I was saying, this year is packed for video games. Like every month, I put out a 10 biggest games coming to Xbox list. I'm not even kidding. For the next few months, I might have to put out top 20 lists because there's so much coming. Like if you ever see someone on Twitter or whatever talking in your feed and say like, this year is disappointing for video games, they must lock themselves off to just one genre or no genres, because the amount of games coming this year is sickening. Like, people's wallets should be hurting in October like they normally do. Trust me, like literally this month through to December, stacked beyond belief. And having RTS games on the platform is great. It shows that there's actually an audience for them. And by the way, when Age of Empires 4 came to Xbox, sorry, not Age of Empires 4, Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, when that came to Xbox, in the UK, it charted at number 3. An RTS that launched in Game Pass charted at number 3 in the UK. Do you know how amazing that is for an RTS? So, like, obviously, I think like the UK is more RTS centric because of Europe and stuff, but like it shows that there's an RTS fan base on console, and we want more of them. Unfortunately, we don't have many. If you're on PC, congratulations, you have access to basically every single one ever made. But like on console, we want more, and hopefully this does well. Maybe some third-party publishers will actually pay attention and bring some games over. I will port beg Homeworld Remastered for the rest of my life. So I can play that on a console. I don't care if I have to have a keyboard and mouse hooked up. But yeah, Age of Mythology, it looks fantastic. And before we get to the next topic, we have another super chat. First super chat by Nick W. Thank you very much for the $5. It says this year is half over as well. There's still plenty of great games coming. Let me tell you, Nick, the next few months is so stacked that I don't think like people that are really well off financially will be struggling to buy all these games. I'll put it like this. In September, just for remasters and remakes, out of an already packed month, you already have Mickey Mouse... I forgot the name of the game, but the Mickey Mouse Paint game. Epic Mickey. Epic Mickey, which they've done a fantastic job remastering that. That comes out in September. Lollipop Chainsaw Remastered comes out in September. Dead Rising Remaster, which is a remake, comes out in September. It's a stacked month. Like September's going to be discussed. In October and November, packed to the point where I have to start making videos now for those months. Like in Gamescom, we're going to see more announcements for new games and games with release dates at Gamescom. Like it's hard to actually describe to people how many games are coming. Like last year, there was a lot of games coming each month. But this year, I'm going to be struggling to put out 10 lists. I'm going to have to make top 20 lists, which is crazy. And all genres are covered, by the way. There's JRPGs coming to Xbox. There's horror games, first-person shooters, third-person shooters, open-world RPGs, action RPGs. Like, it's crazy. And I think if you're a fan of any of those genres I just mentioned, you're going to be happy. There's a ton of games coming. Like I've been saying all year, I think 2023 is probably going to go down. 2024 is going to go down as one of the best years in gaming. Like, better than last year, even. By a long shot. But that's Age of Mythology. And anyway, thank you for the $5, Nick W. It's a stacked year. Again, we're in July now. It's going to get crazy. I want to talk about this quickly because it was kind of trending the other day. Game prices is something we've talked about a lot on this channel, on the podcast, and I've made videos about it in the past. Someone that worked on StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty a while ago posted how, I don't know if you saw this, Logan, StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty made less money than the shiny horse skin in World of Warcraft.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, a skin made more than that, than a game, right? So, like, that's why this person from ex-Blizzard employee was on about why you see so many microtransactions in these games. It's because people buy them. I have a no microtransactions rule. I've never bought a single microtransaction, mainly because I don't really see like an intrinsic value with them, and I always think that they're overpriced. Like the horse armor is still full price, like for Oblivion. And World of Warcraft, there's a lot of like overpriced stuff. Do you know Star Trek Online is basically bought and paid for by microtransactions? If you want to get into Star Trek Online, you can play, I'm not even kidding, 100% of that content for free. And you might be wondering, how's the game supported? It's because of whales. There are people that will go out and buy every single starship, because you can outright buy starships in that game. So there's people that I've spoke to that have entire fleets, like 100 starships, and they've probably spent thousands of pounds on that game. So people like me can play for free, and literally you can play every expansion, every mission in that game for free. And when it comes to game prices, there's this contingent online that people are wanting developers to raise the game prices. Like, Logan, have you seen this?
Yeah, it's psycho behavior, but yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, and I don't understand, right? Game prices have already went up. None of these developers have mentioned this, by the way. In 2020, game prices in the US went to $70. In the UK, they went to £70, and I think in Canada, it's like 80 or 89.99 for like a brand new AAA game. Australia, you're paying what, an arm and a leg and a couple of blood diamonds. Like, it's nuts. And they're already talking about wanting to charge more, and they always bring up this one specific thing, and it annoys the living hell out of me. What about the prices we were paying in the 90s for games? Because games back then were sometimes £60, £80 or whatever. And it's like, now you can go and play a game without getting in your car or walking to a GameStop or a game shop or whatever, that you can turn on your console and buy a game digitally. There's no manufacturing of a cartridge, which back then they had injection molding cartridges where they had components, like a cartridge used to have over 100 components, sometimes made in multiple different factories. And then it had to be packaged and then transported via a truck to, a warehouse, and then transported to GameStop or whatever. And now, it's none of that. So what are you paying for? The store isn't taking their cut. Manufacturing isn't taking their cut. So why all of a sudden should we be paying the same amount for games when they cost less to make? Like, yes, the game prices themselves cost more to develop, but people keep bringing up 90s prices, and it blows my mind because, and I've talked about this on the channel before, there's a developer from a very big studio that called me cheap a few months ago, and I've mentioned this before because it annoyed the hell out of me, because I said games shouldn't be £70, and they shouldn't be $70 either. When I see something like Assassin's Creed Mirage get announced a few years ago, or like Epic Mickey, the remaster, or like Dead Rising is going to be $49.99 in the US, right? And I think, yeah, that's a fair price, and I think all games should be that price. All games. I'm not talking about AAA, indie, all this stuff. Another super chat by Nick W for $2. Thank you very much. He says the digital versions should cost less. You're right, right? This is what, this is what really annoys me, to the point, again, I want to jump out of my window. So I wanted to get Diablo 3, Reaper of Souls edition, back in, I think it was 2016 or something, and I couldn't find it in store. It was sold out, right? So I went to buy it digitally, and I'm not even kidding you, it was £15 more digitally than a new copy sealed. Like, sometimes in the UK, digital just costs more. And I don't get it. Like, what are we paying for? Like, Microsoft and PlayStation and Nintendo, they don't charge for their games to be listed on the stores. So why are we still paying full price for digital games? And in the past, we've been told that it's to appease the store owners, right? I'd 100% believe that, but stores are closing worldwide. It's clearly not making a difference. So why are we paying $70 or £70 for each game? Why is every game priced the same? And the games that are cheaper now are games where developers have openly said they're smaller, like Assassin's Creed Mirage, or if they remasters, like Epic Mickey, Dead Rising, Lollipop Chainsaw. Um, and I've talked about this before. Like, there needs to be this sliding scale for video games. Like, there can't just be this flat rate price of $70 for a brand new AAA game. Like, and it doesn't even have to be an hour thing. But like charging 70 for everything, it's gonna. I actively think it's hurting the industry. Right? You have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order released at $60 in the US when that came out. Absolute colossal success. It was the second biggest selling game of the year after it came out, alongside Call of Duty, and that was a single player game without microtransactions and all that stuff. And then the sequel, which is even better, no microtransactions, and it cost $70. Less people bought it. Yeah, when it first launched, it was tracking higher, but it hasn't charted since. Nobody's talking about it anymore. Like, I honestly think that game maybe did half the sales. I'd be shocked if maybe 7 million people bought it. But it took us of the price. Guardians of the Galaxy, single-player action-adventure. It launched at $70. And also, it didn't help that Square Enix marketed it in such a horrible way. But it just seems like the game industry is going to be, hurt if something doesn't change with prices. And a bunch of developers are already thinking about charging $80. You have Ni no Kuni 2, Wrath of the White Witch. The first £80 game in the UK. I'm the only person that's been talking about this. If £80 for a video game, Logan, £80, that's about $95.
Yeah, that is. I can't even use. There's not strong enough words for that. That is just ridiculous. Like, I've seen it in the U.S. too. Like, you hop on the digital store for Xbox when it's actually working, but when you're on the store, and yeah, $80 US, like $79.99 just for the game. It's not the game and expansions, or game and extra, fluffy, feel good digital artwork or soundtrack or anything. It's just the game. $80 is like, who do you think you are? I don't know. It's just outrageous.
And I hate to say these games I love do badly. Like Guardians of the Galaxy was my game of the year that year. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. In my opinion, that should have been a 20 million selling game. That's one of my favorite games of all time. It improved on the original in every single way, but that extra $10 makes people think, I'll wait for a sale. And unfortunately, we live in a world where all these companies now, like, they rely on that first week, that first month of revenue. I think it's a dumb business model to do it that way. But look at movies. You have these films come out at the cinema, and then 2 weeks later they get pulled and then put on digital. There's a film that came out recently in the US. It's a biking movie. I think it's called The Bikers. Tom Hardy's in it. That was at the cinema in the US for 11 days. 11 days. Because it didn't get that massive rush at the weekend where people like $100 million, and they decide to pull it so they can fill the cinema with other films to make more money. I think all these businesses, video games, movies, television, they are crippling themselves because they relied on that initial upfront money. Whereas, look, I'm sure it was the same in the US, but in the early 2000s, late 90s, 2010s or whatever, were movies at the cinema in the US for sometimes 2 months.
Yeah, I remember vividly that we had movies there all summer, or for even half a year, if some of the films, if they were bigger titles and just were doing well, because it'd get in the zeitgeist and just word of mouth. Anytime a Star Wars movie was in theaters, or the Titanic, or the major marquee event films would stay in theaters for a long time, and even some of the lesser known movies would stay in at least a couple months. Now it is they're so risk averse or so like, just have to have jet fuel injection revenue immediately, that if everybody and their dog is just not in the mood for the movie at that moment and doesn't go see it within the first week or two, they yank it and put it on digital. I remember, before, I know this dates us again and is another 360 era reference, but like, I remember having to wait like months, almost, like half a year maybe, to get a film after it left theaters, like to buy and own. So, and now it's just like, oh, it's been less than 2 weeks and now I can just buy it at home. It's like, why would I bloody go to the theater if I could just wait 2 weeks and own it? Like, it, they're like blasting their own feet off with a howitzer. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, like again, this isn't a movie podcast, but I want to use movies as an example because they're doing it with video games, like The Fall Guy, right? The Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt film. That is, in my opinion,
Hmm.
the second best film of the year. Incredible. I saw that at the cinema. I think it was 4 days after it came out, and literally a week later, I'm scrolling down on Twitter and it said digital release next week. Like, one of the big things for TV shows and movies is that they used to get this absolute huge influx of revenue because people would buy them on DVD and Blu-ray and back in the day cassette tapes, VHS tapes, and because you had to wait months and months, and then like 6 months later or a year later there'd be a release. So everyone had been clamoring to watch it for so long, people would go out and buy it. Like I think The Dark Knight uh, was one of the best-selling Blu-rays of all time because so many
I
people.
remember that they were flying off shelves.
Yeah, yeah, it was hard to get in the UK. So like, so many people were because I think that came out 8 months later on Blu-ray, and like so many people were excited to watch that film again after their cinema experience. So you either watched it at the cinema or you had to wait 8 months afterwards. And like now they want that upfront money, they want that money day one. So that's why like Furiosa should be one of the biggest films of the year, and it just came out on digital. It blows my mind. And it just came out at the cinema. Like, it makes no sense. But you have these video games, they're charging 70, they're wanting this upfront thing, I don't know. I just hate seeing game prices inflate to 70. Game developers and some publishers are wanting to push 80. We know Sony's wanting to do 80. I know Bandai Namco, they experimenting with $80. And it's just a shame. It's a real shame that I think the game price thing is going to really harm the game industry, and there'll be a mini crash. We'll still have new games to play. There's a bunch of games in development. We'll all be fine. But when it comes to like big, marquee releases, we'll probably see less of them unless something changes. Anyway, that's just a little bit of a ramble because I'm sick of the whole price thing in the UK. And it's obviously in the US. Anyway, good news. We'll get some good news going. So there was a weird announcement the other day, which some people were freaking out online about, and I kind of laughed because it's the Amazon thing. So people don't know, Xbox and Amazon announced that you're going to be able to play xCloud and Game Pass on Amazon Fire TV sticks and TV devices. This is a colossally huge announcement, and some people are like acting like it's a bad thing. Some people can't afford full price consoles, so the fact that you can buy like an Amazon Fire TV stick for, I think they're like $50 or something, and you're gonna be able to play like some of the biggest releases. I think too many people saw that announcement. Like Logan, you obviously saw the doom and gloom, didn't you?
Oh yeah, no console, no problem,
Yeah.
baby. Let's go.
Like don't get me wrong. I thought that wording was a bit. I knew people were going to overreact to the wording, but as a concept, having Game Pass and XCloud on Amazon Fire TV sticks is actually genius, and here's why: Call of Duty launches in Game Pass for the first time ever this year. So there's about 200 million people with Amazon Fire TV devices. So that's potentially 200 million more customers that could subscribe to Game Pass and play Call of Duty, which would fund more money because of microtransactions. People want their Homelander skins and all that stuff. So like, I just saw it as more people going to be able to play these games, And the internet isn't the best way to play these games at the minute. Hell, Xbox Live's down. So like the people that are acting like, hey, this is Xbox telling you that you don't need a console to buy these games. It's like, to buy the games, you're still gonna have to buy them on your console or PC or whatever. You're still gonna have a console to play them natively. Like, I've streamed Fortnite and Forza before. It's a good experience, but there's nothing on comparison to a native console experience or PC experience. So when people start freaking out every time Xbox makes an announcement, I kind of shake my head. It's like, this isn't an announcement for you. It's an announcement for people that can't afford consoles. There's millions of people out there that don't want to buy a console. That's the big thing people forget. There's millions of people that want to play video games, but they don't want to buy a console because they are part of this, I want to say, Fortnite generation. Because it's true. The concept of buying a multi-$100 box to buy games that cost tens of dollars is a weird concept to them. So them being able to play their favorite games on TV with this Fire Stick, it's a big deal. And one of the other announcements is that you're going to be able to play Fortnite on this thing, right? Currently, you can't play Fortnite on iOS devices. That's been a big thing for years, and the only way you can do that is by playing on xCloud. See, this is the problem whenever Xbox makes an announcement and people overreact. They think short term and they don't think about the big picture. It's all about getting external revenue from these people on other games. So people will play the Fortnite on xCloud via the Fire TV sticks, and then they'll experiment with some other games and invest money into the service that way. Then you might have these people that want to experience native game support, such as 4K, ray tracing, all this stuff with advanced textures at a native level. So like when people were overreacting, I just kind of shook my head. Like, this isn't for you. Like, it's not aimed at me. It's not aimed at people listening. It's aimed at the millions of people that do not want to buy a console at all. They don't want to buy a PlayStation. They don't want to buy an Xbox. They don't want to buy a Nintendo. They don't want to buy a gaming PC. Like, this isn't for us. It's for them. And when you have potentially the biggest Call of Duty in years launching in the service, it's a big deal. Like, this is going to have wave-based zombies. People have been wanting this for years. It has a full-length campaign, which I bloody love. Black Ops has some of the best stories in Call of Duty, so it's going to be the biggest campaign in a long time. Multiplayer has been reinvigorated because of the omnidirectional movement. People have been wanting Call of Duty to be mixed up for a while. Yes, they've tried in the past with jump jets and jetpacks and stuff, but that's like slapping a band-aid on a problem that doesn't exist. That wasn't right. But omnidirectional movement completely changes how people are going to play Call of Duty. And that stuff's also going to be available in the campaign and zombies. But like, when people were overreacting, this isn't for you. It's for millions of people that don't want to buy consoles. Logan, what's your take on this? Because obviously the wording, no console, no problem, was a bit crass. But as a concept, like, it's clear that they want to try and get the millions of people that don't want consoles in general.
Honestly, I think this is a great move. I'm a console guy first and foremost, but I recognize the value of this. Like, at the end of the day, I want the Xbox ecosystem and platform to flourish, and the more people playing and the more people who have access to the games and the more people pumping revenue into the ecosystem to fund things and fund other projects and to allow deals and other things to enhance the Xbox experience, the better. And like you said, like Amazon, their Fire Sticks, their Fire TVs, that is a huge swath of new potential customers. Like, think about it. Anytime you put in your USB stick or you turn on your Amazon Fire TV or whatever, and you see an Xbox app up there, and you're like, oh, what's this? You click on it, and then it's like, ooh, poof. I can play all these games and stuff on this. Like, either, via Game Pass or whenever they make it to where you can play your own games on the cloud or whatever, however they do it for this. And being able to do that is just yet another great thing. Like, as much as we joke and clown to Google Stadia, they actually had some really good ideas and some good implementation of some stuff. And the idea of Xbox, who actually knows what they're doing most of the time in regards to gaming and stuff, like having taking that initiative and adding it onto what they already do is awesome. Just a controller and a TV, no console needed. That's great. I just thought, and I even replied to their thing like the people on their socials like they are smarter than this. Come on now, read the room. You know that's like that. Like feel the burn on a day you axe for studios or you know it it's just tone deaf and not very with it. But, the strategy itself, I completely support. It's not a problem to me or anyone who has consoles. It is not a threat to your console experience. It is an additional thing to help get more people into the Xbox ecosystem, which is something you should want.
Yeah, perfectly put. Like I've like I've said, I've played Forza Horizon 5 on my mobile via streaming. I've played Fortnite via streaming, and it's fun. It's cool, but if you're a proper console gamer or PC gamer, hardcore gamer, like you don't want to play video games that way, like as your main device. Like sure, maybe if you're out the house, you want to like play some Forza or something. That's cool, right? But there's millions of people out there that they would want to play games this way. Again, they can play these games that don't cost hundreds of dollars via a device and then $70 for a game. Like they can get this service, Game Pass, on their TV and play these games. And nobody's actually been hurt. Like the whole I know every time there's Xbox news, there's a contingent of people that will make it the end of the world. It's like it's not. And by the way, all these people that say they're leaving the platform because of these choices, are you telling me that like giving people that have Amazon Fire TV sticks the ability to play the games you're looking forward to takes away something from you? Like that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense.
It's infringing on my rights, Jamie.
Yeah, it's so weird, man. And like I said before, this is going to be one of the biggest Call of Duties ever. People have been wanting this to come back to Black Ops for a while. We haven't had a Black Ops game since 2020, and having a full length campaign. Like I said, level based zombies, and I have never seen this much hype for a Call of Duty game. Not because it's brand new, it's because all the new stuff. The omnidirectional movement is the biggest game changer to COD ever, and you have this. I hate to call it that, but the Fortnite generation where you play these free to play games and these free games, they don't want to buy multi-$100 consoles. They just don't. So this is a good move for them, and it's going to benefit gamers in the end because it's going to be more money put back into the service. Xbox gets more funding. Everyone wins. More games for everyone. But that's that. And speaking of all the Game Pass stuff, Logan, I know you want to talk about this, and it's actually been trending a bit in the UK. The Activision Game Pass stuff.
Yeah, my first thing is where is it? When the what do the numbers mean, Mason? Speaking of Call of Duty Black Ops, like where is the Activision stuff? It has been 6 months after 2 years of fighting to get this deal done, and then it's finally completed, and over half a year now, and the only Activision game to speak of that is in Game Pass, which was one of the biggest selling points to your fan base and everything that, deterred a whole bunch of other stuff in the works to get this thing done was these titles being added to Game Pass. The only one is Diablo 4. Like that just ain't cutting it. Like I get it, like they probably want to do like this mega drop, I guess, because they have to, make Battle Pass and the Blizzard stuff all work properly, and it's a lot of games to integrate and stuff, but come on now. it we're in July, and Diablo 4 is the only Activision Blizzard game in Game Pass, like, since the deal. Like, surely those are going to be added soon. Maybe tinfoil hat time, join you on something about maybe they're waiting until they get the green light to make games you own playable on cloud everywhere, and not just Game Pass titles, and then they do it. Or maybe they're waiting for Gamescom, but I don't work for them, so obviously I can't speak on the intricacies of what's going on. But it feels like there should be more than just one game at half a year mark.
Yeah. Well, a few people have been pointing out to me that there's been a bunch of games recently, outside of Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon, that have been listed for games for Windows. Because the Xbox,
I've been seeing that.
yeah, the Windows Store doesn't have like these Call of Duty games, like most of the Activision games. So they have to relist them on that store. I'm sure they have to go through a certification process. They can't just put them on willy nilly, you know. So like I think that's why. And then when it comes to the backwards compatible stuff, like they have to basically figure out the licensing stuff for what 3 generations possibly. We don't know if we're going to get more games added, but Jez Corden from Windows Central recently hinted that the Activision stuff is going to be announced soon. So you have Gamescom, which is next month. I think it's on the 25th of April. Sorry, not April, August. It's been a long day. So I think we're probably going to see this stuff next month at the latest. Who knows? It might happen soon, but I'd be shocked if we don't hear in the next 20 days. Just given the stuff I've seen in my feed. And another thing that people have been noticing is that, and I one of the reasons why I don't reply to a lot of people that just make posts on Twitter is because some people take things the wrong way. I'm a British person. I'm sarcastic 99% of the time, right? So I can say something trying to just be funny, and some people will think I'm being personal or rude. Trust me, I'm being sarcastic. Well, these posts have been going like kind of semi-viral the past few days, where someone will say, "Hey, the Transformers games have been relisted on Xbox Live," and then they'll post a picture of the Xbox store, and there's Transformers Fall of Cybertron, right? I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Those games never left the store. You just haven't been able to buy them. If you own the games, you can re-download them if you wish. So unfortunately, there haven't been any new games relisted. They just never left the store. And believe me, it pains me because I want the Transformers games relisted. And who knows, that stuff might come because the Transformers license is an open game license where it's not locked off to any publisher. As we've seen today, with a new Transformers game was announced. It looks okay, third-person action game with some racing. But I do think the BC stuff will happen. Like, Logan, we talk about backwards compatibility all the time. Do you think the Activision batch of backwards compatible games is actually happening?
I do. I just am cautious on how big a batch it is or expansive it is. Like, I truly believe that we will get at least a few. That I think, games like Singularity, Gun, um, maybe True Crime, the Prototype 1 and 2, like those Bethesda games that were made by id but somehow tied up with Raven as well, who was also tied up with Activision, like Quake 4, maybe the Quake Wars games, Wolfenstein '09, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, like stuff like that, I think would be reasonable and easy to fix problems and could be added, relatively painlessly. The ones that I would hesitate on would be like the Transformers or the Marvel games, because I really want them. They have a good relationship with Disney. Maybe not as good as the one Sony has with Disney, unfortunately, but they have a decent relationship with them. and they've been supporters of BC before. So I'm sure they could reach some kind of agreement to relicense them. But, at the end of the day, there's a price tag, and Disney might be wanting some gold bars for that instead of, something more reasonable. But, we don't know. I would say that I think some of the other I think the Transformer games are far more likely than the Marvel games. That would be my personal hunch because Hasbro has been blatant and upfront and out there campaigning for it. They've been like, "Hey, we want these back. We want these relisted. Hey, it's not our fault. It's Activision has this or this." And then, Lulu Maservi, at Activision when she was there said, we haven't lost the source code. We know where it is. And so it seems like it's a something that if Xbox is motivated to, they can figure that out. Hasbro clearly wants it to happen. Usually when you have two motivated groups, you can get something done. So I would say the unlicensed games, there's a good chance we get a small BC batch of those. Maybe, fingers crossed, the Transformer games. Would love the Marvel games, but I'm going to put those on the don't be too optimistic on them. And especially the Spider Man ones, because, well, we know how Sunny rolls, so just, we can't all have nice things.
Yeah, the BC thing is a weird issue because there's so many games to get at. It's disgusting. Uh, like I've been scrolling through a bunch of Xbox Activision games from 360, and there's so many games that people would love. Like I know some people don't like talking about old games, but old games are awesome. Like so many old games. Like people still talk about the original Spider-Man 2 from what 2002. Like people still talk about that game because it was really good. And I think people just want access to these games, and unfortunately, like you said, Sony with the Spider-Man license is a bit weird. But the reason I keep going to Transformers is because you have AAA developers and indie developers now making Transformers games, so I can't imagine the license being that much money. Like I'm not a game developer, and I don't work on licenses for Hasbro. Some people might think I do because the amount of I talk about Transformers a lot, but it can't
We
be that
should be
difficult.
on payroll, man.
Yeah, like like geez, the amount of times I've sold people, the amount of times I've heard from someone, "Hey Jamie, I've bought Mass Effect because of you." Like I should be getting a direct cut from a year. Let's be honest, but it is what it is. But yeah, I think we'll hear something soon about the whole Game Pass stuff, um, especially the BC stuff because again, the Xbox 360 store shuts down this month, so we want some news. Speaking of gaming news, Wolfenstein 3 is in the title. People might be wondering why. It's not just clickbait either. Um, it turns out there's multiple sources pointing out that Machine Games, the developers of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, are now making multiple titles outside of Indiana Jones. Logan, you pointed this out to me. Uh, I think we both know it's pretty much going to be one of them's going to be Wolfenstein 3 because I've done some digging and it turns out Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, it doesn't look like that's going to get post-launch expansions. I mean, why would it? Um, so they're obviously new games. One of which it's blatantly going to be Wolfenstein 3.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that one of them is Wolfenstein 3. And I was first made aware of this from Tamir222, who's a well-known and well-connected guy who has contacts with Bethesda and finds lots of interesting LinkedIn stuff and job listings, postings, updates, and stuff of that nature, contractual, like historical data for, finances of games and like deals that had happened in the past and stuff. He's a good source of information, and he had posted this thing that they had found these job listings and projects that were being updated from Machine Games' catalog. And yeah, they have at least three projects in development. So obviously Indiana Jones they're working on. Um, and then that leaves you to what are the other? What are the at least other two? And it seems like surely they're going to finish the Wolfenstein story. Trilogies require a third film in game, generally speaking, unless you just want to end it the way 2 ended. And then there's been the rumors and the buzz and kind of tea leaves about a Quake reboot or maybe Quake 5, whatever you want to call it. And some people thought Doom Dark Ages had been that but morphed into Doom Dark Ages. But if you remember in the Indiana Jones teaser and some other stuff you've seen, they had Wolfenstein stuff written on their boards and their projects. And I mean, not Wolfenstein, Quake stuff on their boards and stuff that they were working on actively and stuff. And it seems to line up. They've been working along with Night Dive Studios um, on all the Quake remasters, remakes, and adding new expansions to them, and adding some links to the games and the stories to connect them more fluidly. Quake 1 and 2. So, to me, going to all that effort, all that stuff, all these tea leaves, several projects in development, it just, I really do think the next Quake, whatever it is, be 5 or reboot, is in development from them, along with a Wolfenstein. That's if I had to bet, that's what it would be.
Yeah, I think if you're a developer over Bethesda, like Machine Games outside of id, like they are the best studio for Quake. Like
Mm-hmm.
Quake needs that like comeback because like Wolfenstein has a great story, people love it. Doom has a story, but people love the modern Doom games. And like there's so much hype for the Dark Ages. Like Machine Games, like they could do Quake in such a cool way. And like Quake's all about over the top and speed. And like look at the last Wolfenstein game. You could run down a corridor, dual wield sniper rifles. Like it doesn't make any sense, but it's funny and it's amazing at the same time. Um, but like one of them obviously is Wolfenstein 3. Like you said, they have to finish the story. Without going into spoilers, Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, ends a specific way, and there's points towards a future storyline. And before people bring up the Youngblood, people don't really recognize that game as a proper Wolfenstein game. Hell, whenever Bethesda talks about Wolfenstein, they never mention that game because it's not
Can't
that.
imagine why.
Yeah, I mean, you inject these live service elements into like Wolfenstein, which people didn't want, and yes, it does connect the story going forward, but nobody cares. Wolfenstein fans don't care. In fact, I think Wolfenstein Youngblood has to be one of the games where I don't see people defending it ever. It's just people realize, a dog turd is a dog turd, unfortunately. But the other Wolfenstein games, and by the way, it would technically be Wolfenstein 4, but that aside, Wolfenstein 3 is coming. It blatantly is. Quickly we'll move on to Halo, because Halo, we got some Halo news, and I think it's actually going to be big. So, someone called Dan Ginley has came over from Bungie and Creative Assembly, and is now, let me try and find this, is the new creative lead designer for Halo 7. Now, when it comes to Halo, Halo's had this weird track record for years where, it was announced ages ago, and then Halo Infinite was meant to come out in 2020, and we all saw what happened because, people paused the individual frame to see Craig. And people were like, this has to be delayed. Halo was delayed. People lost their minds, even though it was delayed like people wanted. And the Xbox Series X and S launched without a Halo game. So we got Halo Infinite a year later. I loved that campaign. Loved it. But the multiplayer was kind of disappointing to people because of the amount of content. However, now, Halo Infinite multiplayer pops off. People love that multiplayer. Personally, I don't play multiplayer anymore But in general, like Logan, you play multiplayer. Would you say the Halo multiplayer now for Infinite is good?
Yeah, I love it. It Halo multiplayer has, you know, obviously hindsight's 2020, but if they could have had it come out like this at launch and kept sustained content, like, you know, it's obviously a different timeline entirely for the franchise, but it is in an awesome place right now. And multiplayer is great. I feel for the single player focused people on the Halo story because you give a game a name like Infinite, you kind of, and the way they had talked and everything, you think that they were gonna add more, you know, the endless. It wasn't the ended. It's the endless. Come on, the story's supposed to keep going, but maybe they're doing kind of a soft reboot or something. But I'm looking forward to Halo 7. I have high hopes that Pierre and the new leadership after they had that purge have cleaned shop and have got Halo in the right direction. It took a while, took way longer than it needed to. Took some people at Microsoft, spining up and making a decision, but it got done and it's in a much better place now.
Yeah, I think like it's funny because we've seen this before with other games. Like a developer comes out and says this game has a 10-year plan. And Halo Infinite was going to have, future content for single player as well, but that was seemingly axed. Um, I if any game developers listening, uh, stop saying upfront that you have a 10-year plan. They did it with Anthem. That game didn't last 10 weeks, right? Yeah, you can still play it, but there's no new content. It is a barren wasteland of nothingness. Destiny, they said they have a 10-year plan. I think that's the only game where they actually stick into it, kind of. The Division, that's in a weird place at the minute, although they do keep getting new seasons. But, like, I don't understand publishers obsessed with this 10-year plan thing. Like, this is my experience with Destiny back in the day. Back in 2014, I literally played the story 35 hours. I finished the game. I took out the disc, uninstalled it because I finished it. Right? That's my experience with Destiny. Not because I think it's bad, because that's the content I got out of it. But like for some reason, game developers want to sell us on this idea of not playing a game till it's finished and not playing the multiplayer as much as we want. It's to sell us on an idea of multi years of content that just keep bringing us back. And I think that in the modern age, like that won't work, right? Warzone is obviously sticking around. Fortnite is obviously sticking around. Apex, unfortunately, that can't just go away, and we can have Titanfall back. You know, this 10-year thing is just a weird obsession. And like, as someone that only plays Halo for single player, where I haven't had any content outside of the launch. There's no expansions for me, and I would pay Microsoft for expansions. I love video game expansions, you know. So like I think Halo moving forward, having some fresh blood, it's going to do the franchise some good. In my opinion, I think they should just concentrate on single player and just add on to the multiplayer for Infinite. There's apparently that they might be moving to Unreal Engine 5 for Halo 7. We've seen what Unreal Engine 5 can do for games. You get some gorgeous visuals, but there's also things outside of that. There's also destructible environments. There's also procedural generation for open worlds. There's also AI for interactive characters, which with MetaHuman and all these other advanced techniques for, NPCs during, games. Unreal Engine 5 is amazing, So I think they're moving to an engine where the tools are maybe better. We could see more content regularly. We could see single player get more content outside of just the initial release. I think this is good. Although, like Logan, do you think they'll stick to just having infinite multiplayer being a separate thing?
If I was them, I would do that. I think, one, it would save you a ton of time and effort and resources that you could devote to the single player and make it the best it can possibly be, and basically kind of do like what Call of Duty does, where they've kind of got this system where they tether multiplayer experiences and this thing to this like network kind of hub system, or like whatever, to where you can have, Halo Infinite's multiplayer is just Halo's multiplayer going forward, and they just continually add new content or updates that they need to do, and then just make single player campaigns or massive expansions or whatever for Halo going forward. Like, I think that would be a smart idea, and it would be a very resource and time saving method to do it.
Yeah, I mean, like Unreal Engine 5, it has its issues, and like when it comes to, I think one of the big things with multiplayer is that add the tools there because, like when Destiny first came out, like Kotaku, and I hate mentioning Kotaku, but Kotaku reported that the engine they were using on the hardware they were like developing the games on, like it was such a pain to make new content with that game engine. And it's like the only reason I'd say switching to Unreal Engine 5 would make sense is can they make content faster and more efficiently? Otherwise, just stick with the engine they have. You know, is Unreal Engine 5 great? Yes, but it has to be the developers. They can't have developers that are just, fresh out of school, never used a game engine in their life. It's like, no, they have to have actual talent. And 343, they are a talented studio. They know what they're doing. Halo Infinite's in a great place now, and that's in their proprietary engine, which I'm sure they'll use in some way in the future. But I think Halo 7, it's off to a good start. If they do mainly stick to single player and, let Infinite be, I think we could potentially see Halo 7 launch with the next generation console. You know, we've
Yeah.
sorry, what were you saying?
I was just saying, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's just I think like Microsoft they learned because not having a major launch title for the Series X and S clearly hurt them. You know, people have been wanting Halo to launch. Like, imagine this. Imagine there's an alternate timeline if the Xbox One launched in 2013 with Halo 4. Like, that would have been a completely different timeline as it is now. Like, Game Pass might not even be a thing. Don Matrick might have still been in charge, because of that whole scenario. But I don't know. That's the story for another day. But I think having some fresh blood in Halo is going to do the franchise some good. And the fact that he's came over from Bungie and Creative Assembly, the dude's clearly talented. They make good games. Anyway, Logan, I know you want to talk about Avowed quickly.
Yeah, it just there's been a lot of updates on it, from the third person thing being in the game, which people didn't know about apparently. And then there was a recent interview. Shout out to Windows Central. Go check it out. They have an article where they sat down with several members of the team to talk about some features and some updates and some decisions they made for the game. Like, basically, like why there's no romance in the game, and like that they heard the feedback about the visuals of the game, and that they made it a priority to fix the combat and the visual stylings after all the feedback. And it is going to be a true Obsidian game, like you and I and others from our generation grew up with. You've got Knights of the Old Republic 2, Sith Lords, you've got Dungeon Siege 3, like the Pillars universe, like all their Outer Worlds, all their games have had where you can go into combat, you can talk your way out of something, you can turn people against each other, you can do all kinds of branching narratives and decisions, and how they're making it to where you're not limited to one quest, to one skill tree type thing, which I thought was really cool. They made it abundantly clear that you can't max out all your skills and completely fill like all the skills, because they're like, you have to have some restrictions. You can't just be this omnipotent, character being, whatever. But you can dabble in all the stuff. Like if you want to make like what I do generally in RPGs is kind of like a tank rogue hybrid kind of thing. Um, you can do that. You can dabble in all the stuff, and that was a big update that they gave. And then about the romance, they said that we wanted to do it well and go like fully into it and be like really detailed, in depth, like meaningful interactions and character relationships, or just not do it at all. And they said for us to accomplish the level we were looking at, it would have added significantly longer to their dev time and schedule. Maybe that's something we could see down the line, but for right now, that they made the conscious decision not to do it. It's not because they didn't think it was important. They just wanted the characters to stand on their own and be important to the story without adding a lot more time to the game. And that being acquired by Xbox allowed them to cut the original co op focused stuff and make it a more traditional Obsidian RPG, which was good news to me.
Yeah, them being. By the way, you'll never see these media outlets post things like you just said there. You know, Microsoft allows RPG developer to continue to make single player content rather than multiplayer. That isn't a headline. That's not a headline anywhere because it's a positive Xbox story. Um, but anyway, everything I've seen about Avowed looks fantastic. Obsidian always knocks it out of the park. They just know what
They
they're doing.
always deliver.
Yeah, they always deliver like consistently with RPGs. The whole romance thing, as a Bioware fan, I'm okay with it. You know, I think some romances in games can feel forced. Like if you're saving the universe, let's be honest. Do you really see a romantic situation every single time working? No. And like, there's a woman in this game that looks like a Furby, right? I'm dreading the things we're going to see online when that game releases because gamers,
Yeah, you might have to mute some phrases.
yeah, like
Yeah.
that. I'm trying to think how to be PG-13. Like, gamers are corny, and people are gonna make things with tools and websites, but it is what it is. It happens. It happens with every bloody game now. I'm a Bioware fan. You can't open Twitter without seeing that stuff. Like,
Man, these fans are down bad, man.
yeah, like oh god, every day it's like chill out for 1 second. Um, but yeah, Obsidian, they're gonna knock it out of the park. And the funny thing is, right, when that game was first announced, you know, the first person magic spell, a lot of my replies were like, I hope we can play it in third person. And I'm not really stuck up on camera angles. Like, I don't care. Like, I just want a good game. But there are a lot of people that just prefer to play third person. But I find it funny that they've had this third person mode this entire time, right? And they never really thought it was a big enough thing to talk about. It's like, yeah, it's a big thing people want to talk about. You can play the whole game from start to finish in third person. They haven't shown much off outside of some character interactions, which I think's fine. They're going to be talking about the game more over the coming months because, again, it's a big RPG to show off. But I just love the fact it's a region-based RPG, which we don't have a lot of. And, you know, I think the last region-based RPG we really had on that scale was Dragon Age Inquisition. And we've talked about the hinterlands in that game. That could be boring, but this is more of a dense RPG. And the fact that they came out and said it's a 30-hour game, right? So you obviously gonna have side quests and level up scale and all this stuff. So like, I'm guessing most people will put maybe like 60 hours into it, 50 hours. And honestly, I'm perfectly fine with a 30-hour RPG. Not everything needs to be 100 hours. Like, Logan, what do you think about the whole 30-hour thing? Because to me, personally, I actually love the idea of having more 30-hour RPGs. Hell, I'm a Mass Effect fan. I live for that stuff.
Yes, I mean, 100%. Like there is such thing as too much of a good thing. Too much, like some experiences, they outstay their welcome. It's like, all right, it's like this is enough. Like we're dragging this on too much, and they're trying to stretch it out for their bottom dollar. And like honestly, a tailor focused hub world or open world type game with 30 to 40 hours RPG content with great story, characters, relationships, dynamics, combat, everything sounds awesome. Give me that every time. Rather than, games that might have 100 hours, but you're going to be having hinterland sections or, like just, oh no, I got to go kill the rat in the basement, or oh, there's another sewer quest, or just like, oh my gosh, like, come on. We're recirculating stuff here. Like, give me less but original than that.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned the 30-hour RPG thing. Like, some of the best RPGs ever made are 30 hours long. Mass Effect 2, Deus Ex Human Revolution, Fable 2, The Witcher 2, Assassins of Kings. Like, they are genuinely great games. I talk about this a lot. Crisis Core Reunion, that is a 20-hour long JRPG, and it's perfect. It's perfect. I gave that game a 9.5. Like, Crisis Core Reunion is one of the best JRPGs I've ever played. And it's 20 hours long. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and it's amazing. And, like, unfortunately, people, like, in my feed will literally, like, tell me, like, oh, I don't want to play this because it's too short. Like, you miss out on so many like, I don't agree with, like, everything these people say, but, like, Asmongold, right? Huge content creator, covers a lot of MMOs. Like, he said this thing a while back, and it really resonated with me. There's a bunch of people that only play, MMOs, and look for an MMO that they're going to invest 10,000 hours into. And it's like, shouldn't you be looking for a game that you just want to play from start to finish and just enjoy for maybe tens of hours, 100 hours? And it's the same with single player RPGs, right? Single player games, they don't need to be 100 hours long. Yes, once every so often it's cool. You have your Starfield or your Elder Scrolls or your Witcher 3. But, like, 30-hour games are perfectly reasonable. Especially if people want these, like, super realistic Unreal Engine 5. You can see people's paws stretch on their faces. There's ray tracing. There's, realistic light scattering. Like, it's stupid.
Hellblade 2.
Yeah, people want Hellblade 2, but in a 200-hour game where you have big action set pieces where planets are blown up. Don't get me wrong, that sounds amazing, but it's not realistic. It's not going to happen. So to have, like, an Obsidian 30-hour RPG, I love that. And I want more. Like, hell, I'm sitting here thirsting for a new Mass Effect game. And if that game comes out and it's a 30-hour to 40-hour game, I'm set. One of the worst things about Andromeda, and this is my weekly point where I get to say something negative about Andromeda, that game was bloated and it didn't need that open world content. Like, Logan, when you played Mass Effect Andromeda, did them going to open world make you think, wow, this is good?
Well, at first I was excited because I was like, ooh, I love, the Mass Effect universe and everything. And it's like, okay, so they're adding some new stuff and they're going to expand the scale. Let's check it out. But there were so many quests and things that devolved into, okay, I've got to ping this radio signal over here, or I have to scan this object over here, or I have to collect this, or I have to go to this location and talk to this person, or, find this item and then backtrack 20 minutes game time to this other part of the map to do this other thing instead of, like, Mass Effect 2 or 3, you could be on the Normandy in and out of a planet in like 5 minutes. And it just, I don't know. Yeah, that was a problem.
Yeah, I try to limit the amount of times I say negative stuff about Mass Effect Andromeda because, like, I could talk for hours about how that game just offends me in so many ways. But anyway, that aside, I love the fact that Avowed is just, like, sticking to a pure RPG experience, and I love the fact that Obsidian, they can make whatever the hell they want. People crap on Microsoft for everything, and you won't see Kotaku or IGN post about this. Like, one of the biggest corporations on the planet, Microsoft, are letting a single-player RPG studio stick to making single-player RPGs that aren't live services, that don't have microtransactions. You won't see that headline. You won't see that, unfortunately. But it is what it
And
is.
they let them. Oh, sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
I was done talking about it.
I was gonna say, and they let them have a small team make an experimental game, Grounded, which has honestly turned out. This might sound like a hot take, but it's honestly been one of the biggest new IPs for Xbox this past generation. Grounded has had tremendous success. It's incredibly well done, very fun, survival type game with good storytelling as well and characters and campaign and stuff, and it's family friendly, and now it's on all these different platforms. They're making a show for it, and that not every company would have let them try that as an additional to what they're best at. And so, boom, it paid off. We have seen it spectacularly fail. Bleeding Edge obviously did not work for Ninja Theory. Like, we have, Redfall was an apocalyptic disaster for Arcane, literally a studio killer. But, Grounded ended up being a home run. Just they tried something different with a small team. It worked out. Now they have a marquee new franchise. It's another one of those things they don't talk about for some reason.
Yeah, it's a shame really because so many studios have benefited from this stuff. Again, Obsidian, they've talked about in the past, and In Exile's talked about this. Like, In Exile was at risk of going under before Microsoft purchased them. Like, they were struggling to get money to make games, and they've been wanting to make the most like, their RPGs are hardcore. Like the last main In Exile game before Microsoft purchased them, that outside of Wasteland, was a game called Torment: Tides of Numenera. That is one of the most hardcore RPGs people will ever play, and nobody talks about it. It was barely marketed. I think they got money off Kickstarter. It's a sci-fi RPG set a billion years in the future. Like, it's crazy, and like it's too difficult for me. I couldn't keep on playing. Like, the whole the combat system just flew over my head. I do want to give it another chance at some point, but like, it was such an original RPG. Nobody talks about it. So much risk. Almost shut down the studio, and now they can make whatever they want. Hell, In Exile are making their first major AAA release with Clockwork Revolution because of Microsoft. So that's that. I just think, like I say, Joe in chat mentioned like how we can't have good Xbox news circulating. Everything has to be negative. We have to, and like, Xbox isn't perfect. I think their backwards compatibility situation should be, better. I still think they could make games backwards compatible. I don't think the store should shut down this month. I think their game DVR for 1080p 60 clips is weird. We used to have 2 minutes of recording, and then it just went to one without any notice. Like, but outside of that, Xbox has been doing some good. You have these detractors on Twitter, which will make every story an end of world situation. They're switching platforms, but yet they're leaving all of their games behind. Okay, that's a weird way to react to an announcement, but it's like every story this year about Xbox has been spun in some negative way. Xbox is putting some old games on other platforms. People say it's the end of Xbox. Xbox have not just their biggest showcase to date, but possibly the best game showcase to date. And people are still trying to trivialize it and make it about, Xbox games are coming too far way out. Games are years away because there was no release dates. Xbox has a roadmap. Imagine being a gamer and excited for future games, and they have a roadmap. But no, we have to talk about how Xbox laid off some people. And layoffs are bad, but all these studios had layoffs. Sony had layoffs. THQ Nordic, basically Embracer laid off. How many studios has Embracer shut down this year? 4?
It it's been a lot. I've lost count, honestly.
Like, they've laid off like hundreds and hundreds of people, and they said they're not going to stop. But like, we finally have some good Xbox news, and it's just trivialized. I don't know. Xbox did some good with Obsidian. They're doing good with NXile. They're letting the studios make what they want. They aren't perfect. They can make things better in the future. But hey, gamers shouldn't be thinking about that stuff. There's good games coming. Anyway, Logan, before we close out the show, have you got anything else you want to cover?
No, just a great time to be in gaming, and I fingers crossed we get that Activision stuff soon. Really, 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 really can't emphasize enough how much I want a BC batch. And if you're listening, team, Jason, others, please, goodwill is always a good thing.
Yeah, actually, I'll do this little update before we close out the show. So the store shuts down this month, and very late in the month, it's shutting down. Unfortunately, the ability to buy Xbox 360 games from the Xbox website doesn't work. You keep getting a sorry, there's an issue sort of page, and a lot of people have been having a problem. So if you want to buy games from the 360 before the store shuts down, as far as I know, and I'm going to test it out tomorrow, you have to buy them from the 360 themselves. If people are having problems ordering the games via your Microsoft wallet, I have read that if you turn off automatic reoccurring billing, if you turn that off, you can start buying games again using your Xbox wallet. Again, I'll test it all tomorrow and I'll post about it on Twitter, all that stuff. And I'll be covering this Xbox 360 stuff in a future video that's possibly coming out next week. My previous video, the 10 biggest new games coming to Xbox this month. There's some amazing games coming out this month. The link is in the description down below. Highly recommend people watch it. These videos take a lot of time and effort to put together, so the responses and all that stuff's appreciated. Our social links in the description down below. For Twitter, mine and Logan's. Follow us, we cover gaming, talk about stuff. Logan talks about sports, and I talk about the Arkham Asylum escapees now and then. And by the way, talking about that, seems to anger people when I'm just making fun at their expense. But it is what it is. Anyway, we'll be back next week for another episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. I'm tempted to go half an hour earlier live next week, just so I can rant about Mass Effect Andromeda. Who knows? I know some people have been wanting me to rant about Mass Effect. Believe me, I could go off. I could go off about that game. That game came out in 2016, 17, and I'm still actively annoyed. Slightly triggered, but mainly annoyed. Anyway, that's it for today. We'll be back next week. Follow me and Logan on Twitter, all that stuff. We are out, everybody. Peace.